Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us on Food for Thought. My name is Sunil Chandy. I'm the priest and rector here at Christ Episcopal Church. Thank you for joining us today. This ministry, Food for Thought, is a ministry out of Christ Episcopal Church in Westerly. And so if you are here today with us, although this is a pre-recorded session, we do hope that you do come and tell us if you like the session, what we're doing, and how, and the conversation that we're engaging in. Today's episode will be aired right before our homecoming celebration, which is on September 11th, 2022, and that's going to be a day in which we're going to be really welcoming back the community as they come back from their summer experience. Especially here in New England, we have this holiday called Labor Day that is a national holiday, and so everyone is away until Labor Day, and then after Labor Day, Labor Day almost bookends the whole summer experience for people in the U.S. And so after Labor Day, people go back to either school or back to their normal work patterns and back to and engage the fall season in a way that's kind of like normalized, not vacation time anymore. And so September 11th is usually the welcome back day for us and our congregation, where we start back on Sunday school, we start back on a host of things. We have on that day we have a bouncy house outside, we have fun games, we have hamburgers and hot dogs for people, and the kids register for Sunday school. And this year we'll also be having on Homecoming Sunday a guest preacher. My old seminary, General Theological Seminary, we're going to have the dean of General Theological Seminary come and be with us on that weekend, preaching for us. His name is Dean Michael DeLashmuth. He is amazing, extremely bright, and adaptive, and hopefully we'll have him on a Food for Thought before he comes. But he'll be coming and preaching for us that weekend, and then on top of that, we'll have the blessing of our geothermal system and the AC, since we haven't done that in a while. So we're going to do that as well, and then finally on September 11th, it's now approaching about the 22nd anniversary of 21st anniversary of 2000, September 11, 2001, and so again, this day is very bittersweet in that it's the end of summer and it's the beginning of the fall season, but it's also a day in which the country recognizes a painful moment. The 9/11 attacks in 2001 that really changed us in a way, and so the music for that Sunday is going to be very patriotic. I mean, it's going to be one that remembers America and as a place of blessing and of hope for people. And so so it's going to be, even the memory is a bit painful, and so today we have our continuing guest, Sharon Younkin, and Sharon is going to help us process that day, maybe, of how we might feel and how do we address the feelings that come up out of that day. And so, Ben, please bring Sharon on board. Sharon, welcome.
Father Sunil, it's so nice to see you and all the viewers.
Yes,
So
it's great to see you too again.
yes, well, I must admit, when I was listening to you talk about that big event, I was wondering to myself, is there an age limit on the bouncy house?
No, no. It actually, we had a whole bunch of kids run there, and it's really great. And one year, and they have pictures of me. I actually am in there in the bouncing house, but they never publish those pictures. I don't know why.
Ah, well, sadly, unfortunately, I will not be there that weekend. It sounds like a beautiful weekend that you have planned, because I'll be visiting my daughter, but
Yeah.
I will be thinking of all of you for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'll be thinking about Kellen as well. How is
Oh,
she
thank
doing?
you.
Everything good with her?
Yes, very good.
All
Very
right,
good.
good.
She's doing
All right,
well.
all
So,
right. So it's a complicated weekend, right? I mean, it's a bittersweet one. We've got all these wonderful activities and joyfulness, and it's about restarting ministries and so forth. But yet also, it's there's going to be a tinge of mourning there or grief there because we're dealing with this 9/11 situation, and we're going to sing patriotic songs, but that remind us of God's hope for this country and this country's hope for the world. So how do we deal with
mm,
the feelings that come up?
yeah. I love this topic. It's a great question. I found something recently online by Rick Hansen that I'm going to talk a bit about. He talks about 5 steps to deal with grief and loss, and I like these 5 steps because they to me they comprise and there's the validation and the acceptance of our feelings, and there's also a very hopeful way to sort of move forward. And so the first thing he talks about, and I totally agree with him, is this idea of compassion for ourselves and for others. And so, and what we mean by compassion is to be mindful of your feelings. Be mindful if you're feeling sad, feeling afraid, feeling, grief. Be mindful of that and to allow for that. And to remember common humanity, you're not alone.
Mm,
This was something we as a country suffered through together. We all feel, that tinge of sadness and grief, and the world changed after this
yeah,
event,
yeah, yeah,
especially in this country, right? Things really changed, and
yeah,
it was a really sad event. And then the kind self-talk, how would you respond to a good friend
yeah,
who's feeling the way that you're feeling?
yeah,
And to talk to yourself that way. So that's first, number 1, compassion.
yeah,
And secondly, he talks about problem solving, if there's action to be taken. So if you're grieving something like a medical illness, do you need to get a second opinion? In this case, I don't know. I'm trying to think, would there be any action to take? Well, you could go to a service that commemorates the loss of all these folks.
yeah.
That's some action that we can take in this case. I would not recommend that people watch the old video footage over and over again,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because that in itself, I found at the time too, you and I have talked in other shows about how people can inundate themselves with traumatic images.
yeah,
Um, and that's not really, if you're just upsetting yourself, that's not really going to be helpful. If you want to do something, take action, maybe you could get involved. I don't know if there's still fundraisers for the families of victims or anything. Maybe there's something that people could get involved in,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
It's interesting, that experience, I remember it even in that time period that, seeing images on the TV and then being at a loss and then opening the church and knowing that people were coming in there just to pray. And there was this real sense of community. People just were coming in, and I remember at Trinity Vineland in New Jersey, opening the doors, and people would come in, and and we were just together. I mean, that is, and this idea about action, action being a place of, where you could gather with other community members to commiserate and know that you're not alone, and one action you might consider is prayer.
Mhm.
Prayer that helps to transform not only you but your relationship with your neighbor. And so out of it, it was really interesting because a lot of really interesting other actions that came out of it was that we started to think about our relationship with the people who are Muslim within the community of Vineland and how we could reach out to them and how they viewed this horrific act. And I'll tell you, the Muslim community was here in the U.S. was also very devastated, and they were wondering, you know, why this happened, and 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 so it was just a real important, the action being reaching out to others, and trying to
Oh, I
understand.
love that. I love how you reached out to the Muslim community, yeah, how can maybe the action is how can you help make the world a more peaceful place?
Yeah, no, it was really really powerful. And one of the things that came out of it in my thinking, and also in the thinking of people, I think, is that you know religion is complicated, and people of faith are complicated. And so when you say that you're a Christian, right, you might not put yourself in the same category as the Jim Jones kind of Christian, or the extremist kind of Christian, or the you know and so in the same way with being a Muslim, being a Muslim didn't necessarily meant that you condone this activity, especially from Al Qaeda and that brand of religion. And so it was just really this wonderful understanding that came out of it, that we're more complex than we might imagine. You know,
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
yeah,
To me, that's was such a healing, gesture and approach to all
yeah,
of this. Instead of going to a place of fear and then acting from a place of fear and doing things that are not helpful.
yeah, yeah,
You really kind of kept an openness and acted from what I think was wise mind and recognized when you look at the evidence and the facts that religion's complicated, like you said,
yeah,
and there are lots of different variations and there are lots of different interpretations.
yeah, yeah. And
So,
I love that. So it's compassion and action.
yeah,
What's the other
compassion.
thing?
So then the third step, radical acceptance, this is a big one, accepting that tragedy is part of life. Now, acceptance doesn't mean we like it, doesn't mean we approve of it, but sometimes folks stay stuck in suffering because they don't accept the reality that something has happened. Yes, that did happen. It was a horrific event. Tragedies happen in life, horrific events happen in life. Suffering is part of life. This is the world has changed. Things are different. People can get stuck in the shoulda, woulda, couldas, or like, why does the world have to be different now? Why is it this way? Just like with the pandemic,
Yeah,
right? It shouldn't be this way. I don't want to have to deal with this. Well, you got to adapt,
yeah,
right? And so when we accept the reality, that helps us then to adapt to and to be more flexible.
yeah. No, I love that. I love, this idea that, and I love, what, the acceptance, if you don't accept it, you're almost as if you're trying to freeze time, saying it didn't happen. You deny it, right? And then you're kind of okay prior to the event. But, but I love the idea that there is always a tomorrow, and we're going to get to the tomorrow, but we have to accept what happens today in order to get to the tomorrow.
Right. And
Yeah,
that segues perfectly into step 4, Rick Hanson's step 4, which he talks about have courage. And what he means by that is that life has pain. And yet, for the most overwhelming moments, like when we have something horrific happen, and those, for most of the time, for most of the overwhelming, other than the most overwhelming moments, we have a choice. We can, we can decide. We have a choice. We can decide how we want to be. Do we want to be defined by this or not? Are we going to let something define us, or are we going to learn from it, or figure out? It reminds me of Viktor Frankl. You remember Viktor Frankl, who wrote *Man's Search for Meaning*, right? So he had this whole. He and his family, they went to concentration. They were sent to concentration camps in world during World War II, and he lost his entire family pretty much. Came back out after being in these concentration camps, and he learned when he was there. he had literally lost control of everything, his whole life, lost most of his loved ones, but the one thing he had control over was his attitude. They couldn't take that away from him, right?
Yeah.
So you do have a choice in terms of where, after as you navigate this too, where you choose to focus. And sometimes it's just, we have to he talks about stoicism. We have to just get through things sometimes too. I may not want that medical procedure, but I got to get it done.
Right.
You got to we have to get through these moments and have courage.
Right. And I love, and even that Viktor Frankl, man's search for meaning is like what the meaning that you attach to it, right? The events that are happening in your life. So for him, it was this, never forget, never again. I think it was just this idea that this, and for many people post Holocaust, it was like, how do we take this horrific event and transform it so that it would have a positive meaning and a hopeful meaning for future generations. And I think, like with the 9/11 tragedy, uh,
Mm.
there was a lot of things that there are a lot of good meanings. I mean, when you speak of courage, one act of courage that keeps running in my mind over and over are police and fire and EMS folks running into buildings that were burning,
Mm.
and people who are, you know, um, when people were falling off the towers, how they were holding hands. Sometimes I saw couples holding hands with each other, and it was just the idea that we're not meant to be alone. That life is more than just the momentary satisfaction of our needs, but rather there's something more that drives people to help each other. You know,
Mm.
and that was a beautiful meaning that I drew out of it. It's like people are good even in the face of bad actions by some people. Humanity has this impetus for goodness, and for humanity,
Mm.
uh,
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that thought.
I that was that event changed me. And then the other thing is also the idea that, you know, and this is something that was important for America to realize that, prior to that, uh, America being in, North America, and, being isolated in some way, the rest of the world, there was like, you have two great oceans that separate us. We have two great oceans that separate us from the rest of the world. But now this event helped us to understand that we are part of the world, and things that happen in Afghanistan can affect us
Mm.
in a way that we didn't and so you can actually move to the point where you could be fearful of that, or you could embrace it and say, okay, if we are a part of the world, and we can be affected by what's happening in Southeast Asia and Africa, then, and in China, then what do we do about it? How do we approach things so that even in those places we might find hope, or hope might be engendered so that it doesn't affect us in a way that's negative.
Yeah, wow, so rich. Yes, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that takes courage too,
Yeah.
to not be afraid to learning about new cultures and new ways of being, that whole flexibility that we talk about. With the pandemic, I think also we discovered how small the world is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's global health. We have to be concerned about the health of everyone in the globe because it affects all of us, right?
It does. It does. And
Mhm.
so, it's interesting. The global pandemic was really interesting because, countries like ours are able to get the medications that are, like highly valuable, and, Pfizer, Moderna, all of those medications, the vaccines. Well, there was a real concern. Well, what about those countries that can't afford those vaccines?
Mm.
How do we, I mean, part of the profit thing is we could work on just ourselves to get ourselves vaccinated. But if those folks aren't vaccinated, the virus still is around and it's mutating, and now it could still affect. people who are vaccinated here, and so this idea that it's not just we're not islands alone, we're connected
Mm,
in a deep way with all of humanity in some way.
yeah. And that could be some meaning that we could take from this,
Yeah,
right? That's something that came out of it was learning that we are connected and working to be more connected and to generate peace and to think of our global community.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so so the idea that cause and effect, our actions do matter in the world, and the choices we make does matter,
Mhm.
and they have implications. So yeah, that's it, really interesting.
And then step number 5, this is the last step he talks about, which is gratitude. And so, a lot of times, he talks about this whole idea that, most people have many good things for which they can be grateful for, and we tend to just gloss right over it. And there are many he talks about jewels that are scattered about, and so that even in the midst of mourning something, grieving something, um, we can also, in addition to taking action and radically accepting it and having courage, we can also have gratitude for what we do have, and all the blessings we do have. You talked about just like the having access to the vaccines, right? Having a vaccine
Yeah.
or but there are so many things that which even and something that I thought was really powerful with what I was what, when I sort of, was listening to what he was talking about, he talks about even from the if it's our last year, our last month, or our last day, we can still find things to feel grateful for.
Yeah. I love this point, and I think um, I remember that 9/11 experience. Immediately afterwards, there was New York City became, New York City was really interesting because, you've been around New York City, right? And I grew up in North Jersey, and so
Yeah.
you have a certain character in New York, and it's like if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere almost, right? And there's
Yeah.
like a
That's
rough.
what Frank Sinatra said.
That's right. That's right. And
Mhm.
if you have like a rough kind of veneer for New Yorkers sometimes, right? Well, that was all broken in that 9/11 post 9/11 situation. People were out there helping each other, and you saw the resilience of the city,
Mhm.
and you just,
Yeah.
and it just also resonated with the rest of the country because you know at the core of it, we're just people helping each other.
Mhm.
And so that was really uh, really beautiful, and I think we can have the same experience with the pandemic.
Yes,
you know
I agree.
this is the great learning that we come out of it. I mean, that last point again,
Mhm.
point 5 is
Yeah,
the
gratitude.
gratitude,
Mhm.
the gratefulness for being with people. I mean, I remember my
Right.
sister was in New York City, and she had to cross the river, cross the Hudson, and to get to the other side. And I was in South Jersey, and I'm calling her, and I couldn't reach her. And then when she finally said that she was safe, I was just so grateful to God. I mean,
Mm.
like I had Simi's brother-in-laws. One was heading into the Pace building. He was taking courses at Pace, and he was watching as he was going in. He was watching the towers come down and people jumping off of it, but then having him come back home and just being grateful that he was alive, and then you know you hold people closer to you, right? And you realize that
Mhm.
life is, and this is the post-pandemic experience too,
Yes.
right? We're
Yes, so much of what you're saying applies to the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we've been through this major death experience from much of our country, for many people in our country, and 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 now we're grateful to be in conversation and in community. I mean, I see it in church when we're at coffee hour, and we're able to just be with each other. Or
Yeah.
you know,
That's so true. Friday night, I went out with a few, colleagues that one of whom I had not seen in person for more than 2.5 years. And it was so great to be in that moment, just talk about feeling grateful. And I remember having a moment where I was grateful that everyone was present, we could be together,
yeah.
these
And I had one
moments.
of those moments this weekend when you came over to church. After
Right.
church, we were doing Bible study, and and I had to, actually, it was so interesting because I'm sitting in one area, right, and I had to move. I moved myself next to you
Yeah.
because usually I see you on the screen, and then to have you right next to me was great.
Yeah.
And just to say thank you for this last 3 years, or 2.5 years of
Yeah.
being in conversation. You know,
Yeah. Oh, I
it's
know. I felt the same way, Father Sunil. I was grateful for that time too and to have you there. And I wanna say too, I've been so grateful to I mean, we've been doing this for 2.5 years, like you said, and, um, I don't I've been we've I think I've learned so much. I've learned so much from you. I've learned so much from this process, from going through this. It's been This will be something I'll look back on someday, and I will really think of this as being really meaningful for me. I do now, and I am so grateful too. There's so much to be grateful for that, you know, we could have these conversations, like you said, as we've
yeah.
navigated so many unknowns over the past 2.5 years.
Yeah. And this is again, this is yeah, same here. I resonate with all, and you've taught me so much, and it's just been helping me in a way.
Mm,
And I know it's helping all the people who watch us too. I mean, there are
yeah,
people all over the world who watch us in this show.
yeah.
And so the thing is, and that actually says something about 9/11, the 9/11 experience that we're going to have on September 11th. The idea that we've come through this,
Mhm.
that we've had, and and God has helped us to come through it in a way that allows us to be strengthened and resilient and aware and compassionate and able to connect with others. This is something that's beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Amen.
amen. Well,
Amen.
uh, uh, Sharon, our time is almost up here, but I just wanted to thank
Mm.
you for this. It's always great talking with you. And even though you won't be with us on September 11th, because you're with your daughter, you'll be in our thoughts and prayers.
Yes, thank you so much, Father Snail.
All right.
So,
God
thank you.
bless you. Bye. Friends, thank you for watching and being with us. I love these conversations with Sharon. They always give me insight and help me to find courage. We're finishing up our time with one another, and as is our tradition, we say our prayer. This prayer that was crafted by Bishop Thomas Brown of Maine. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Jesus Christ, who traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness, at your command the sick were made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fear, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, counselors, and our caregivers. We ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace and love and serve God. Spread the light of Christ to the world around you. The world needs it right now.
Thanks for watching. Did you know that you can join Christ Church from anywhere in the world? If you're feeling connected to what we're doing, email us today at communicate@christchurchwesterly.com. christchurch.org.